What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. Today, we've got our NFL player projections for week 2. On this show, we will run through our top 5 projected players at each fantasy position. We'll discuss the players we're especially high and low on in our projections early in the week, and we will throw out a player prop for each position. Here to do it with me, one of the top fantasy football rankers and projectors in the game, one of the most accurate, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, happy week 2. What's going on?
Happy week 2, man. I am still recovering from week 1, but overall had a good week. Just an exciting week 1. How'd your week 1 go?
Yeah, it went pretty well. Nice to catch that under to end the week. Love me some primetime unders. Hate to see my guy Rodgers go down that early, man. I mean,
so brutal.
Jeez. I mean, New York was just, at least they got the win. They got the win, but that was, man, I was looking forward to at least seeing how this experiment would play out, and now we don't even get to see that. So
such a bummer.
Yeah, but a lot to talk about. A lot of surprises. A lot of interesting things happen in week 1. So we'll try to break it all down. Let's start by going over our quarterback, our top 5 quarterbacks. Who you got for the week 2?
So I got Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes.
What was that?
Patrick Mahomes. That was planned.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes.
Jesus.
Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence.
I got Josh Allen number 1. I'm not gonna overreact. The Jets defense is amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I'm not gonna overreact. Jalen Hurts number 2 though. Patrick Mahomes number 3, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, we're pretty much in lockstep. Maybe I'll put Hurts over Allen, but I don't know. Short week. We'll see what happens. Who you high
on? So I'm high on Brock Purdy. I loved him entering the season. And he had a solid week 1. He only threw for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he didn't have to throw much since it was a blowout win. And while the same might be true this week against the Rams, it's still a great matchup. And the Rams play a ton of zone, and McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle all thrive against zone. And, week 1, Brandon Ayuk looked like one of the best receivers in the league. So the hype is real with him entering the season. Plus, I had mentioned Purdy does have sneaky rushing upside. We didn't see much of it last year, but I was saying, he could be like Patrick Mahomes and average 20 to 25 rush yards a game if he wanted to. And he had 20 last week against Pittsburgh, got a nice 17-yard scramble. So that's just nice upside that he has going forward potentially. This week he opens up as my QB 16, but I think he has a ton of upside just based on the matchup against the Rams. So I think he's like a high-end QB2 option this week.
Yeah, he looked amazing. Like I was kind of saying this, I was like, to me, his floor was always Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I felt like he was like Jimmy Garoppolo, but like he didn't make me as nervous when play went off script. And he could do everything Jimmy could do. So, and he looked amazing in week 1. So
just unlike Jimmy, if the play breaks down, he doesn't have the legs that Purdy does. Like Purdy can escape pressure, move around, doesn't typically scramble as much so far, but he can extend the play, and that's going to be huge in this offense.
Yeah, Jimmy's more like he'll just like hitch and still usually just throw the same pass. He was going to throw. It just be in a tighter window. So yeah, I really like what Purdy was able to do. And that Pittsburgh defense is no joke, especially on the road in Pittsburgh. So now going against this Rams D that I know Seahawks kind of had a meltdown against because their tackles got hurt, but might be a tougher game for that Rams D this week. I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. He's the quarterback 26. I think he's a startable QB2 this week. I think he should be in the top 24. And that's because we know the way to beat Baker Mayfield, right? It's get pressure with 4, and he's going to kind of crumble. But the Chicago Bears were 31st in pressure rate in week 1 against Jordan Love and company. Just 3.3% according to Pro Football Reference. Now, sometimes they update their charting a little bit as it's Tuesday morning as we record this, but either way, I didn't see Chicago get much pressure, so I'm pretty sure that number is fairly accurate. Jordan Love was one of the few quarterbacks last week who threw for 3 touchdowns. He completed 15 of 27 for 245 and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So I think this is another game where Baker Mayfield's going to be able to kind of sit back in the pocket and delivered to his two wide receivers, Evans and Godwin. And Tompkins looked good. Palmer caught a touchdown. So, this Bucs offense, as long as they're healthy, they'll be all right. They'll be a little undervalued, but they just have no depth. If Evans and Godwin goes down, that's when you start worrying, or in a matchup where you expect a lot of pressure on Baker. But he looked good. He looked a lot of moxie from Baker.
A
lot of moxie, getting those first downs.
What's your rank from to open the week?
I got him in the top 24, so I'm not sure where he's going to end up. But he's 26 ECR, so I'm definitely going to have him like 22, 23, I think.
Okay, good. Yeah. I'm in good. I was kind of embarrassed. He's my QB 20, but it makes me feel better that you're high on him too. But the Bears defense, especially their secondary, looks rough. And Jordan Love, I did say he was probably going to be this year's Geno Smith. Still threw for 3 touchdowns without Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs was questionable. So so Mike Evans and Chris Godwin against them. So I don't like Baker obviously, but this week he's absolutely in play.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, we saw his rebirth in that game against the Raiders. True. So he didn't even know the playbook. Right. If anyone should know that Baker bakes, man, it's us. So, yeah.
By the way, that game, remember I was screaming to play Kyron Williams a little bit more.
Oh, boy, we got to talk. Wait. You're jumping the gun. You got to run.
Sorry, I'm just excited. We finally have some data, some games to go off. I'm hyped.
Can't probably not too excited. Okay, let's go. Who you on?
So I'm low on a couple of QBs this week. Kenny Pickett first and foremost. It looks like that preseason hype didn't really carry over into week 1. To be fair, it was a brutal matchup against the Niners. He also lost Deontay Johnson during the game. Pat Freiermuth also left the game early with an injury. But either way, it was not good for Pickett. And this week, he won't have Deontay, and he might not have Freiermuth, or Freiermuth could be limited. And now he gets to face Browns defense that held Joe Burrow to 82 passing yards in week 1. I mean, they look scary good with, Jim Schwartz using Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith in creative ways. So, fading Pickett all the way this week. And then Matthew Stafford, he had a great game last week without Cooper Kupp, but, he threw for 334 yards against the Seahawks defense. And they looked like one of the worst in the league. They're definitely a defense we want to attack in fantasy going forward. He's going to have a much tougher matchup this week against the Niners. So I'd be careful, trusting Stafford in 2 QB Superflex formats based on last week. He opens this week as my QB 30. So I'm very, very low on him this week.
No, yeah, it makes sense. That Niners D is nothing to play with, as we saw with Pickett last week. I am low on Tua Tagovailoa, and this is just based on ECR. He's the QB 10, and I get it. He balled out, threw for nearly 500 yards, and we've seen this from Tua before to start the year. But I still have respect for New England's defense. I thought they played a pretty good game against Jalen Hurts. Held him to 170 passing yards on 33 attempts and 37 rushing yards on 9 attempts, and was able to stay in that game. Even with Philly jumping out to the big lead. That Patriot defense was able to kind of hold them in that game. So I don't think this is going to be the same kind of matchup. It's a divisional game. I just think you're going to see a little bit of a reversion to the mean this week for Tua. So 10 is a bit high for me. I would still rather stream, guys like Daniel Jones and Purdy and guys like that over Tua this week.
That game could have some weather. That hurricane's out there. It might hit like Sunday or something. No, it won't be a hurricane by then, but that game could have weather, which is one way to slow down this Dolphins offense.
Speaking of which, let's go right to the prop. We split 1-1 last week.
Nice.
As for the listeners who have listened before, we kind of alternate positions every week, 2 props each. So I'll go Tua Tagovailoa. Let's stay right with it. Passing yards. He threw for nearly 500 last week. This is a totally different defense. I am going to set the over-under for his pass yards at 269.5.
Oh, my God. I should have wrote down a piece of paper. I had 267.5 as my line. So that means I have to go under then, because I'm a yard and a half or 2 yards below you.
I like that line. Then I'm in the right.
That's a great line, and like I said, there could be some weather involved, so they might have to lean on the run a bit more. But that is a great line. I'm going to lean under here for sure.
All right. Running back, top 5.
So I got Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Nick Chubb, and Austin Eckler, who, he looks iffy with the ankle injury. So I have him in there right now as my RB5.
I got McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Saquon, Nick Chubb, and Eckler for now is the 5. Pollard would be right behind him though if Eckler sits. But I thought Henry looked really good against a tough Saints defense.
Yeah, Tajay Spears led the backfield in snaps though, which is interesting.
Like if you watch that game, like it was just like, all right, Henry's our guy, and it was just that Henry was ripping off such huge runs and screens and stuff that he had to come out of the game for reasons. But I'd be surprised if he doesn't get another 20 touches this week, especially because he's getting more involved in the screen game. Okay, who you high
on? So I'm actually high on James Conner this week against the Giants. He's my RB13 to begin the week. ECR has him RB25. Connor had a pretty ho-hum week 1, but if you look at the underlying usage, it was great. The Cards stuck true with the potential run-heavy offense and were 3rd highest in rush rate over expected week 1. So Connor could see 15 to 20 rush attempts and more neutral game scripts, which we could see this week. They're only 4-point dogs against the Giants. Plus, he had a 76% routes run rate, which is a bit higher than I expected. I thought he'd be around the 50% range. So he managed to catch 5 passes on that. So he's going to be game script proof going forward either way with this kind of usage. And this week, it's a great matchup. The Giants ranked dead last in DVOA against the rush last year, 27th to start the year. So I think Connor is a high-end RB2 this week and very encouraging usage in week 1. And the other guy I think is a little bit under the radar right now is Javonte Williams. He's at home against Commanders, which isn't, a great matchup, but he's my RB15 compared to the ECR of RB27. And, he handled most of the early down work with P. Ryan handling most of the third down work. So Javonte, it was kind of discouraging to see he only ran a route on 32% of Russ's dropbacks, but he saw a massive 41% target share on those routes. So it's clear he's going to get checkdowns when he's in the game. So he could still average around 3 catches a game with that kind of usage. And he saw nearly 60% of the rush attempts. So he could thrive in a leading game script, which could happen this week. The Broncos are 3.5-point home favorites. And, Javonte is coming back from the ACL tear. So his role could grow going forward. So I consider him more of a mid-range RB2 option this week and kind of a sneaky play just based on his week 1 usage.
Interesting. Yeah, I was a little worried about him. I'm not gonna lie, because he only played 29 of the 64 snaps. I mean, I know some of that was due to the game script, but I didn't think you were gonna be that high on. That's interesting. For me, it's Justice Hill. He's the RB48 in ECR, and I think Justice Hill is going to be the running back to own with Dobbins out in this backfield. I remember in the offseason, after Edwards played behind Hill in one of the preseason games, people were like, is Edwards' roster spot in jeopardy? And the beat writers were saying it's not really that. It's that Justice Hill is the direct backup for Dobbins, more of a speed back that could do more in the passing game. So, and you kind of saw that where, you would think Gus would get all of those kind of goal line carries and things like that. But Justice Hill was kind of in the game in the spots you would see Dobbins in normally last week. So he outsnapped Edwards by 4 snaps, 19-15. So I think, especially because ECR is rating Edwards like RB33 and Hill is RB48. I think, those should be a lot closer together, but I'd actually have Hill on top. I think Hill is more likely to provide startable value, especially because Hill is the guy in the passing game. It looks like Lamar Jackson's not going to get as many design runs, so they are going to be passing a little more. Obviously, you have, Zay Flowers breaking out, but Edwards, you don't really expect him to do anything in the pass game. If anyone's going to do something in that area, I think it's going to be Justice. So I'm high on him. I think he should be he should be in that top 30, 35, 36 running backs.
Yeah, for sure. I thought he was actually going to be overrated just based on the 2 touchdowns, but it looks like initially ECR is way too low on him. Maybe because he didn't have a catch, but going forward could easily average over 2 catches a game just based on his usage.
And he's been having a really good camp. Like he just looked.
Yeah.
If you watch that game, he looked good. It's one of those guys. Early in the year, there's always some of those guys that they just look better than we remember.
Yeah.
And Justice Hill was definitely, I would say, one of those guys in week 1. Who are you low on?
I'm low on Isaiah Pacheco. He's my RB25 to open the week. ECR has him RB19. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire got the sort of the nominal start last week, but after that, we saw about what I expected from the Chiefs running back rotation. I just think the Chiefs are going to limit Pacheco early on because he is still coming back from his off-season shoulder surgery, so he didn't get too much reps in camp, or he didn't play he got 1 snap in the preseason. He was able to salvage a little bit with 4 receptions, but I don't think we can count on that going forward, especially with Kelsey potentially coming back. And he just wasn't able to rack up a ton of carries late because it was a close game. They were trailing too, so could have a similar situation this week against the Jaguars. So I just see him as a high-end RB3 flex as opposed to ECR treating him as like a mid-range RB2 option. I think going forward, maybe starting next week, he'll certainly be in the RB2 discussion, but this week, on the road against Jacksonville, it's not really set up for a Pacheco game.
Yeah, I feel you. He definitely looked the best once again.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, he's the best back in the backfield.
Yeah, but I mean that Chiefs game, they need some Kelsey back and they need it quick. But I think Pacheco will be kind of still that feature back. I don't know what's going on with Edwards-Helaire. I noticed that too. It was like they started the game and they tried to work him in, but he just wasn't really productive. So not a great start for that backfield. That's really it's like 3-man committee. Okay, for me, I'm a couple guys. Cam Akers, first of all, he's the RB35. He got outsnapped by Kyron Williams 26-4 in the first half. So McVay is at it again. with this, just essentially benching Akers to start the season. But worse than that, Akers is at it again. 22 carries for 29 yards.
Yep.
No. This could go down as one of the biggest busts of the year. It doesn't look like it because he got the 22 carries, but man, this doesn't look good once again because Williams is a better player in the pass game, and if Akers is back to averaging 1.5 yards a carry, I don't know what we're doing here. 4 snaps in the first half. I don't know what we're doing here. So I don't think you start him this week. I think you have to kind of give him like a wait and see week now because with a more normal game script, it could get real ugly for Akers. And the other guy is Damian Harris, another guy that I was kind of down on heading into the year because I wasn't really convinced that he was going to be this, big like Devin Singletary type compliment to James Cook, and I didn't even know if he was going to play ahead of Murray. And lo and behold, Murray outsnapped Harris 16-9 in the Monday night game. So Harris still is in that top 50. He's the RB48 in ECR. So deeper leagues, people still kind of considering him in their flex and stuff. I don't think you can this week. You gotta. No. He's another guy that probably might just be a bust, might just be useless unless there's an injury.
Yeah, he's essentially the Zach Moss role. I don't think we've ever recommended Zach Moss on the Bills.
Yeah. Oh no! Like when they play the Dolphins and they're favored by like 10.
Oh yeah. That's true.
They have like a super positive game script. But that was when they were only like having 2 backs active. Like Murray is essentially Zach Moss in reality. So yeah, not looking good. All right, what do you got for the props?
Let's see. For the prop, I'm gonna go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Total yards, so rushing plus receiving yards. Very interesting usage.
Yep.
Week 1 for the Lions. Feeling good about my Montgomery shares. I'm sure you're feeling good about his lead the league in touchdowns bet.
Oh yeah.
But they face the Seahawks, so this would be a good time to unleash Gibbs. Curious where you have it, but my initial line is I'm going to go at 65.5 total yards.
Total rushing receiving.
Yep.
I'm going to go under. I still, that Seahawks, if the one thing they did do was hold Cam Akers in check, and they do have Bobby Wagner. So, they said they're going to increase Gibbs' usage as the season goes on gradually. So, I do expect more, and he looked great. But at the same time, I don't know if we can project them for more than, 12, 13 touches. So, that's probably what he needs to get over that number. So, yeah, I'm in line with it, but I think a little bit below it. So I'll go under. Gentlemen, more memories are made when you're there for live NFL action. And when you need tickets, our friends at Ticketmaster have got you covered. As the official marketplace of the NFL, Ticketmaster gives you more ways to find your perfect seat. Their interactive seat map gives you 360-degree previews of your section to make sure you have the best view on all of those pivotal plays. And if your plans change, Ticketmaster gives you more flexibility to sell or transfer your tickets. Plus, mobile tickets make getting in on game day a breeze. And you can even customize your Ticketmaster app to rep your favorite team's colors. Find tickets today at Ticketmaster.com/NFL. Wide receiver, top 5, who you got?
So I'm going with Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and as always, Stephon Diggs is my wide receiver 5.
Right, yeah, always. He had a good game.
He finishes I think, number 5 receiver last week.
Yeah,
officially.
He's the only Bill passing game member that really had a good game. I still got Justin Jefferson first. I mean, he was squeaky wheel. Jamar Chase number 2. That Baltimore secondary is banged up. Tyreek number 3. Kind of staying with the season-long rankings here. Not going to overreact too much to week 1. We've seen Tyreek go off against the Chargers before. Stephon Diggs number 4, so got him up a little bit. I was impressed that going off against the Jets moves you up a little bit in my ranks. And then number 5, I got to go with Calvin Ridley, man. I mean, who looked better than Calvin Ridley in week 1? Like, who looked better than Calvin Ridley? Outside of Tyreek, I'll give it to him. But like, Calvin Ridley is just a monster. So as much as I love Amon-Ra, I mean, Jesus, and just in a potential shootout against the Chiefs, sign me up for some Ridley.
Love the spicy top 5 rank. It's been 2 years since we were able to get him there. Oh man, yep. He's destined to be in my top 5 soon.
All right, who you high on?
So I'm high on Debo this week. He opens as my wide receiver 11. ECR is wide receiver 21. He had a fairly quiet week 1, but the Niners, they're going to play musical chairs for who goes off and who has more of a mediocre game. But this could be a big Debo week against the Rams that play a ton of zone. He actually ran a route on all of Brock Purdy's dropbacks last week, so he had a 100% route participation rate. So I just view him more as a high-end wide receiver 2 this week, potential low-end wide receiver 1 option. So he could have a big game here. And then going to have to go with Michael Thomas. He's my wide receiver 28 this week. ECR is still a little bit too low on him. Wide receiver 35. He looked great in week 1.
Yes.
Caught 5 balls for 61 yards. I was saying it felt like, going into the season 100% health, Michael Thomas wasn't getting enough hype. I set my prop for you way too low. I was very bummed about that. But he ran a route 92% of Carr and Taysom Hill dropbacks combined. And the matchup against the Panthers probably gets a bit easier with J.C. Horn looking like he's going to miss a few games here. So, Michael Thomas is a solid wide receiver 3 option, potentially, wide receiver 2 upside as long as he could stay healthy. So, love him this week against the Panthers.
Yeah, I thought all 3 Saints receivers looked really good, actually.
Olave,
Shaheed was making plays.
Yep.
And Thomas, he had the hot start, but then, Olave and Shaheed kind of woke up. But yeah, the Saints receivers look good. Let's see what Derek Carr can do with it going forward.
Yeah.
I am high on Mike Evans. He's the wide receiver 25 at ECR. I think he should be closer to the top 20. He ran around on 95% of Baker Mayfield's dropbacks, was targeted on a quarter of his routes, had 6 for 66 and a touch on 9 targets, but he could have had a second touchdown. He dropped a pass where he was kind of slanting toward the end zone and probably runs right into the end zone. So could have had an even bigger game. And this Chicago defense, Romeo Doubs, their number 1 receiver, got 2 scores, and he only played about 2/3 of the snaps in that game. So I think Evans is in for another big game. And then Zay Jones, wide receiver 49. The market continues to be too low on him. I think this guy's closer to a top 36 wide receiver. He ran around on 94% of Lawrence's dropbacks, 5 catches, 55 and a touch on 7 targets. And the big thing is Christian Kirk was in on only 64% of the routes. So this is something you've been talking about all summer, that they were kind of relegating Kirk to more of the true slot role. And Kirk did have a bad game, just 1 catch. but it's more the routes that are, 94 to 64. Jones is the guy we should be thinking of Kirk as, and Kirk is the guy we should be ranked
exactly.
where Jones is. So, Kirk is, I think, still like the wide receiver 30 in ECR. So I think those guys should flip flop. So, like me some Zay Jones.
Nice. I'm right there with you. Where do you have him ranked again? I have him wide receiver 38 right now.
Yeah, I'm about 37. So yeah, but he might even go higher once I kind of clean some things up.
Yeah, because this should be a shootout. So if there's ever a week to play Zay Jones, it'd be this week.
Yeah, I mean it might be every week looking like.
The
way the usage
definitely in DFS for sure in DFS.
Who are you low on that wide receiver for week 2?
So I'm low on Sky Moore. It goes without saying, but he's my wide receiver 55. ECR is still, wide receiver 42, and Kadarius Toney got all the attention with the horrific drops. You called that going into the season with him being a potential bust, but at least he was seeing targets. Sky Moore ran a route on 65% of Mahomes dropbacks, was a little bit lower than I thought it'd be. And he wasn't getting targets either. He was only targeted on 10% of those routes. And it's going to be even tougher to command targets if Travis Kelce returns this week. So I am way, way lower than ECR on Sky Moore this week. And I hate to say this, but I think, Jordan Addison is a guy that I think we need to leave on our benches. Last week, he was able to put up 4 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown, but that was just based on talent alone. Like I said, he was my favorite rookie wide receiver in this class, but the underlying data wasn't ideal. You had mentioned it last week where, he's still behind KJ Osborne.
Yeah.
So he only ran around 65% of the dropbacks. So, it's going to be tough for him to leapfrog Osborne this week. I think it's going to happen soon, but not this week when it's a short week. So I think we'll continue to see Osborne, over a 90% routes run with Addison in the 60 to 70% range. So I would hold off for now. Plus, it's a tougher matchup against the Eagles. So he's still, in the wide receiver 45 range for me, where ECR has him closer to the mid 30s. I think we could trust Addison maybe by week 3 or 4, but just not this week. I'm still holding off on him.
Yeah, and the touchdown did come on a busted coverage. He just ran straight up the field. But no, I mean, he looked good. Cousins was really the one that
True.
He did not look great. There were times where I thought he missed Addison on progressions, but there could be some value there. I think if Minnesota has to pass a lot in a trailing game script against Philly, I think that's when you're going to see more Addison. But it's kind of a toss up because, like you said, it's a short week, so he probably doesn't leapfrog KJ this week. For the Chiefs, I'm low on Toney as well. He's the wide receiver 52. I don't even think he should be there. I mean, yes, he got 5 targets, but he only ran a route on 11 of the 48 pass snaps, 23%. So they were scheming up some targets for him. But I mean, if he saw 23% route share last week and had 5 targets, I mean, what's likely to happen this week after that bad week? Probably fewer snaps. So yeah, this is something I think we talked about this going into the season. Like, this Chiefs receiving core is probably going to be a rotation where everyone, the top guy is not going to average more than 65-75% of routes run. And that's kind of what we're going towards. Rashee Rice looked better than Toney and Moore, so he could start to earn more playing time. Richie James didn't do much, but we know he's been having a good camp, and Watson looked good. So you still have Justin Ross, so there's, I would not, buy on these top Chiefs receivers in ECR. I just buy low. Really, you can't do anything. I would just not play them. You can't really start Rice or anything like that yet if you have him. But yeah, I would not start Toney. I would not start Sky Moore. And then the other guy I'm low on is Christian Kirk. Again, I don't think he should be in the top 30. I think he should be right around Zay Jones. Right closer to the 40s because he only ran around on 64% of the dropback. And for context, Ridley was at 97%. Zay Jones was at 94%. Evan Ingram was at 86%, and ETN was at 83%. So, all of these guys are talented players that they were, they felt they wanted to put on the field on passing situations more than Christian Kirk. And ETN is, I think, a surprise. He was out there when it counted. The fact that ETN could get that high of a snap rate in the pass game and Kirk was the one kind of taking the back seat. That doesn't bode quite well. They'll probably look to get him going after he caught only one ball. So probably get some design plays early in the game. But overall, when you're talking about 2/3 of the routes, that's a big drop off from last year when he was playing pretty much every snap. So yeah, got to be well on him this week. Okay, for the prop, we got to go with Drake London, who had posted a goose egg in week 1, but it was a win. And this has been kind of what the Falcons do. Somebody always, they run so much that somebody in the passing game is always AWOL. So now you have a matchup against Green Bay in week 2. I am going to set his receiving yardage line at 43.5.
I have it at 43. I'm going to go under.
Okay.
I think his median's lower. But yeah, kudos to you for even attempting to set a line on Drake London. But that's a good line. Not encouraging with the 5% target rate. And like you said, it could go back the other way hard this week. So yeah, that's a good line. I thought you were going to go with either Drake London or T. Higgins.
I mean, but T. Higgins, I'm just less concerned about. Right. Come on, we were
True.
all Darren Ravel was making fun of us because it was 12 people at action on the Browns. We all saw that coming.
Yeah.
Every year Joe Burrow starts slow. He can't deal with the Browns' pressure, especially in Cleveland. So disappointing for sure, but I'm less alarmed.
Right.
The Falcons. Yes.
Yeah, he saw a 60% air yard target share or something with 0 yards.
He had 8 targets. I think he just didn't catch any.
No, yeah, he saw 8 targets, and
Drake London saw 1. So yeah,
exactly.
A little more concerning.
Completely different situation. Exactly.
Tight end, top 5.
So I have Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, T.J. Hawkinson, George Kittle, and Mark Andrews.
Yeah, what a shit show. I'm afraid to even rank anyone because
exactly.
Say their name and they turn to dust. But again, it's kind of mirrors my season long rankings for now, just because so much is going on. But I got Kelce, Andrews, Waller, Hawkinson, and Kittle. Waller, I'm still the Giants. They just couldn't block the Cowboys, which I think a lot of teams are going to struggle with blocking the Cowboys here. So I'm not super concerned about Waller. If Andrews is healthy, I still like a pass heavier Ravens attack with him in it. Hawkinson, short week, but still I think they're going to have to lean on him. And then Kittle's the guy I'm a little worried about just because they have so many weapons that week to week I don't know if they're going to need Kittle to put up big numbers. This is fluid. So be sure to check our rankings at actionnetwork.com.
Yeah, with all the injuries that we didn't have Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, and then Tyler Higbee had a good game, but I know you and I were expecting more. I'm sure anybody playing him was just expecting more. And then Isaiah likely got his spot start and did nothing with it. Just a brutal week at tight end. So hopefully we get some more normalcy there this week.
Yeah, it's a shit show, but at least it's an even shit show. It's not like it's like the guy who has Kelce just running away with it. It's like everyone's fucked.
Yeah, and Waller didn't do much either. Because that whole game was a shit show.
They just couldn't block. Yeah, they just could not block. Good call on you for the under. Dallas almost beat it single handedly, but
I know. It was tilting having those weird plays. Make it such a high scoring game, but in the end, the correct side still won, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, you were the one going under Dallas win totals. I was like, this team is going to be. Dallas is going to be. It might be the best team in the league this year.
The season is still young, but out of all my season win totals, that one is definitely looking the worst. I had both the under on Dallas and the Giants, so I was hoping that game would turn into a tie. But I'll take that. I'll take if Dallas is my one loser, so be it.
Not looking good. Regarding Waller, he had, again, because you have to put these into context with how the Giants struggles to block the Cowboys pass rush. He had 35% of Daniel Jones passing yardage. So I think that's what we all want to see from him. So against Arizona, not quite as hard of a matchup. Who are you high on?
So I'm actually going with our boy Chig Okonkwo here. At home against the Chargers. He's still my tight end 14. I still have him as a high end tight end too, despite failing to catch a single pass in week one. But the underlying usage was at least encouraging. You know, he ran a route on 75% of Tannehill's dropbacks. That's what we were hoping for. Unfortunately, Tannehill was just awful, just completely awful. He even missed Chig when he was wide open.
Yep.
Instead, he threw it to, I think it was Chris Moore, because his favorite target of the day, Nick Westbrook.
Oh, yeah. So not enjoying that.
So he chucked it up to Chris Moore, double covered, threw a pick, but Chig was wide open. Hopefully, they'll see that on film. So I think Chig is a good buy low candidate because what we were hoping for was there, the playing time. But he does need Tannehill to get his shit together. But I still think Chig can provide us, high end tight end 2 value going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Tannehill just overthrew him on a touchdown. Like he was wide open. So
that was intended for Chig, you think?
Yeah. No, there's one play I know there's a couple of plays where he only had 2 targets. One of them was a touchdown. And then there's another one where I think he just went. It was bad. For me, it's Luke Musgrave. He's a tight end 18. I think he might be a top 12 tight end this week. He ran around at 80% of the dropbacks, and Atlanta allowed the second most fantasy points to tight ends in week 1. 8 targets, 6 catches, 43 and a touch to Hayden Hurst and company. So, there's not many tight ends running around at 80% of the snaps. So this guy Musgrave, I know, with Watson back, maybe a little less production, but I thought it was very promising, what Musgrave was able to do in week 1, especially as a rookie tight end. You don't usually see that, but he caught 3 balls for 50 yards. We talked about that. Expect him to have some catches down the field or make some big plays, and he had a 37-yarder. So like me some Musgrave guy that people should get familiar with, because in this ugly tight end landscape, he might be one of the more valuable guys this year.
Yeah, it's the year of the rookie tight end. I think, Laporta, Kincaid, and Musgrave all look great.
Yes.
And usually we can't rely on rookie tight ends in year 1, but all 3 look really good. And with tight end being such a disaster this year, they're going to be pretty valuable by the end of the season.
Yeah, well, 1-2 personnel has become the most efficient personnel to throw out of. And so I think a lot of these teams now are kind of using their draft picks to draft these tight ends that they're not being asked to necessarily be like these great blockers right away. It's more to just kind of put that stress on the defense and base. Like if you come out with 3 linebackers, then these tight ends can roast you. But if you come out with nickel, then you can get run on. So I think you're going to continue to kind of see that trend, like these rookie tight ends being more productive early in their careers. Who are you low on?
I'm low on Jake Ferguson. He's my tight end 27. ECR still has him pretty high at tight end 17. And I have conflicting thoughts about Ferguson's week 1 performance. His routes run rate was lower than expected at 56%. The blowout may have something to do with that. But he saw a target on 43% of his routes. Yeah. I mean, we were saying that this is like just whoever ends up being the lead tight end has potential. The Dalton Schultz role, as we keep calling it. But he had 3 bad drops.
Yep.
And drop rate isn't that sticky, so that's something I would overlook. But he's not a lock to maintain this lead role, so the drops could impact his playing time, his target rate. So it's not good. So this could devolve back into a 3-way committee musical chairs situation. So I'm going to hold off on Ferguson in week 2, and this is something we have to monitor because Dak does like to target his tight end, so someone could emerge. It still might be Ferguson, but we definitely have to pump the brakes after week 1. So yeah, he's out of the tight end picture for me for now, but this is definitely something that we need to monitor.
Yeah. If one of those drops, came in the red zone, it might have been inside the 10 even. So yeah, it was rough, but yeah, it's kind of up in the air, just to wait and see. For me, it's Gerald Everett. He is a guy who is looking like he's losing that grip on the starting role a little bit. He ran a route on 52% of Justin Herbert's dropbacks. Donald Parham was right behind at 43%. Last year, Everett was closer to 60%. 60-65% most weeks. So this is a bit of a downgrade in playing time. And Parham did catch a touchdown and looked pretty good out there. And he's always been a talented guy who hasn't always been able to stay healthy. So Everett could be kind of going back into that committee role that we saw him with for years with the Los Angeles Rams. So I do love the Chargers passing game on a week-to-week basis, but they have so many options. Mike Williams wasn't actually hurt. You still got to acclimate Quentin Johnson. So if Parham's now nipping at the buds here, I don't think Everett should be anywhere near their startable conversation. He's tight end 15, but probably going to be outside the top 20 most weeks if he's getting this kind of usage. And Tennessee was pretty stingy, 36 yards on 6 targets to Saints tight ends. You know the Saints love to use tight ends, so that was not promising either. So Everett for me.
Yeah, I was definitely discouraged by week 1, and I had a heater of a GPP team. I had like a Tua Tyreek stack with like Trey Palmer at 0.2%, and I just needed Everett to have a good game, and he went 2 for 21. Really bummed me out, but yeah, I'm with you there. Not a good start for Gerald Everett in terms of underlying usage.
All right, what do you got for prop?
Oh man, so I was going to go with Kyle Pitts, but since you went with Drake London, let's get away from the Falcons passing offense. Let's go with a guy we've been bagging on, and he did have a bad week 1, but Dalton Schultz. Mm-hmm. His underlying usage was interesting. Good. You know, he ran around on 91% of Stroud's dropbacks. Didn't see many targets, but curious where you have him, because I think he is sort of in that streaming discussion this week. But I'm gonna set his line at I'm gonna go with 32.5 receiving yards. He's at home against the Colts.
Yeah. 32.5. I'm going to go under. I think that's a really good line, but I think that's like the average. So I think the median would be a little lower for me. 33 would be the average projection. So yeah, I'm going to go under. Just, you know, the Texans are working in a lot of different receivers. They had, Robert Woods had a pretty good game. Nico Collins had a pretty good game. Dell played, but Brown's still down. So it was kind of discouraging that CJ Stroud wasn't really looking for Schultz much at all in that game. So yeah, I gotta still fade him because I like the usage, but we don't really like Quentin Tarantino actually had
my boy.
11 yards to Schultz's 4, despite Schultz getting 4 targets. So yeah, just a wait and see. He's probably should be a little higher than his ECRs, like tight end 19, probably closer to the top 15, but also still kind of a wait and see for me this week.
Where do you have Schultz ranked though? Just because that whole like tier of tight ends has been shuffled around. He's my tight end 13. So
yeah, I think he's like I think I'm 15, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He's right in that. Like he should be higher than ECRs, like 19, because 86% routes. That's hard to do. It's just the targets per route is not.
It was Stroud's fault, I think. I had Schultz under 3.5 receptions, so I was sweating that final drive, and there was a couple of plays where Stroud had him wide open and he just ignored him. So maybe they're going to watch the film and be like, you should probably target Schultz a little bit more. Yeah, we are paying him, but yeah, no, it was just one of those bizarre week 1 lines where some of the underlying usage was great and some of it was horrible. So just one of those things we need to figure out which direction to go with this guy.
Yeah, tight end. It's not gonna every year. It's just like always, man. It's a shit show, but that is going to do it for our Week 2 NFL Player Projections episode of the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. For even more great fantasy content from Sean and I, check out our full fantasy preview episode, which is out now over on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. If you're into betting, be sure to check out my weekly betting preview episode every Thursday with Stuckey. Got off to a winning start with the 6-pack last week. And that's right here on the Action Network podcast channel. Also, be sure to check out the favorites contest. Pretty great contest we got going on the favorites podcast. ActionNetwork.com for all of our NFL fantasy and betting content. FantasyLabs.com for our DFS tools and models. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon, and we are at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.